It's time for The Box, powered by Mingy Beef Jerky. The Box is also brought to you by the fine folks at Grayson Sanitation. Grab a cold beverage, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show as we spend the next hour or so looking at the wonderful world of sports. And now, here's your host for The Box, Tim Carver.
Thank you very much, Jenna. Welcome into The Box, powered by Mingy Beef Jerky. And boy, what a show we got for you this week, folks. I want to go back to my childhood. Let's go back to the mid-'70s, and a typical Saturday morning for yours truly would, at 11 o'clock, I would sit down in front of the TV, and this is what I would hear.
Russell and Dave Brown right along ringside, all ready to go with another big championship wrestling. By golly, I'll tell you what, we've got it in a half today. We've got a couple of tag matches. We got some single matches, a lot of action today.
Opening single match today. Bub Smith is going to be in here. He's got his work cut out for him because he's going to be going against Billy Robinson in the opener today. Also, we'll be looking at Ken Wayne against Paul Correa. First look at Paul. He's out of South America. Then a tag team match which will have Tojo Yamamoto and Sonny King on one side of the ring. On the other side, it'll be Coco Ware and Steve Regal in tag team action. Not the only tag team match, though. The Assassins will be in here, too. They will be going against Rick Morton, and Rick will have as his partner Big Red out of Atlanta.
Ooh, yeah, what an expiration of time match that is. Two great tag matches coming up right down there. And we're going to be looking forward to seeing Manchester, England's Billy Robinson in action in our opening bout here. We also have some great footage that Jarrett Welch cameras have picked up around the coliseums and arenas throughout the entire territory. We'll have all of it today. Championship Wrestling. Get ready for it. We're going to be back in just a moment.
Then it would be, we'd play out through the day, but depending on the weather, baseball, softball, whatever we were doing that day. Might shoot a little basketball in the wintertime, go sledding or so forth. But at 6:05, we were glued back in front of the TV for this.
Mr. Wrestling number 2, Killer Khan and his manager, the Great Mephisto. A special feature on the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and former World's Champion, Terry Funk. You'll see Wildfire Tommy Rich, and a special television match, Austin Idol and the Superstar against Kevin Sullivan and Steve Travis. Now here's your host, the nationally syndicated wrestling commentator, Gordon Soley.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much, and welcome indeed to Georgia Championship Wrestling. A lot of things are going to be happening during this next hour, including that special feature on the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and the day that a dream came true for him when he won the World Heavyweight Championship. You'll be seeing that for the very, very first time here on Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Yeah, most of my Saturdays, that's what we had. And Saturday morning, it was Memphis Championship Wrestling. Then at 6:05 on the Superstation, WTBS out of Atlanta, Georgia, Channel 17, it would be Georgia Championship Wrestling. Then, occasionally, as time went on at night, about 11:30 after the news on Saturday night, if I could stay awake, it was ICW out of Lexington, Kentucky.
Jeff Sword against George Weingroff and Jim Pride. That's coming up next on ICW Wrestling. Stay tuned.
In order to be the biggest tag team and the greatest tag team, Bobby, baby, you know what we got to do? We got to walk downtown. We got to do the thing better than they've ever seen before. We also got to beat the two guys that the people believe in the wrestling, Pat Patterson and Ray Stevens. And then Orton and Savage, when they talk about super tag teams. The Macho Man and the Cowboy. So Pat Patterson and Ray Stevens, man, I want you to move over, man. Me and the Cowboy, man, we do everything together.
Yeah, I just grew up watching wrestling, and part of that was because my grandfather really liked wrestling as well, and so we used to watch some wrestling way back, even before then, on Channel 8. It would come on sometimes on Saturdays, Saturday evenings a lot of times, way back then. That's for some of you, that was back when you actually had to go out and you had this thing called an antenna, and you got 3 channels if you were lucky, and if you wanted to bring the one in from Charleston, you had to turn turn that antenna just a little bit, and the ones from Huntington, Channel 3 and Channel 13 were a little closer. Channel 8, you had to go on out there a little bit and get it out, and you had to turn that antenna just right. Many of you have no idea what I'm talking about, but some of you do. And but then when we got cable TV, we could pull in those stations from Lexington and Atlanta and all over Memphis and all over the place, and really got some really cool wrestling. And that's what I grew up watching quite a bit of. Just love Mr. Wrestling #2 out of Georgia Championship Wrestling. Ric Flair, Harley Race, Dusty Rhodes, The American Dream, 265 pounds of twisted steel and sex appeal. I just love that stuff. And Memphis, you had Jerry the King Lawler and Handsome Jimmy Valiant, Superstar Bill Dundee, Joe LeDuc, just some great stuff, back in the day, and really enjoyed wrestling. And that inspired me a few weeks ago to reach out to a local wrestler from over in Ashland, and his name was Bob Smedley. He wrestled by the name of Bobby Blaze, and actually was in WCW, WWE, really made his mark at Smoky Mountain Wrestling back in the early to mid 90s. And just tell you what, I just had a great time talking with Bobby, and he's going to be on the show today. And so we're going to take a break from our sponsor, Mingy Beef Jerky. Then we'll be back, and we will talk with Bobby Blaze, Bob Smedley, professional wrestler. Got a great book out. I just got a hold of it and been reading it, and it's an awesome book. It's called Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots Will Travel. Great book, and we'll talk more about that later. But right now, we'll go for our sponsors. We'll be back to the Box with Tim, powered by Mingy Beef Jerky.
If you know somebody that's in the military, let me tell you how to make their day. Send them some packages of Mingy Beef Jerky. I'm told it's one of the most requested items by our troops who are from Kentucky. You got plenty of choices: regular, sweet and hot, bourbon flavored, teriyaki, and there are now Mingy Beef Jerky meat sticks. Mingy's the best because it's hand-cut from a quality piece of solid beef, not chopped or formed like you're going to find in other beef jerky. Mingy Beef Jerky, it is the best. Pick some up today.
All you folks listen to the Box with Tim here in Northeast Kentucky, let me tell you about Travis and Frank Rice, two of my good friends that own Grayson Sanitation. Whatever your needs are as far as trash is concerned, garbage, refuse, whatever you want to call it, if you've got junk you got to get rid of, these guys can help you. They'll bring a dumpster to your house. They'll do whatever you need done to get rid of that garbage out of your life. And they are a proud sponsor of sports all around Northeast Kentucky, and I sure couldn't do what I do without them. Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Travis, for your friendship and for your sponsorship. God bless y'all. Welcome back into the Box with Tim, powered by Mingy Beef Jerky. And I'll tell you what, I'm excited today, folks. Very excited to join me today is just a great guy. I've watched some of his podcast stuff, listened to some of his stuff. He is a former accomplished wrestler. He is an accomplished author, and just an all-around good guy here from the tri-state area, actually, just a town or two away from us. Bobby Blaze Smedley joining me today. Bobby, how you doing, brother?
Brother, I'm doing great, man. After an introduction like that, you're making it tough to live up to. I appreciate it. All the good stuff said there, man. Yeah, right. Yeah, just probably next town over from you, really, is right here in the good old tri-state area.
Yeah, over in Ashland, Kentucky, as we're sitting atop on the Dean Fig studio, looking over beautiful downtown Grayson, Kentucky, and just up I-64 a bit is Ashland, and I guess that's where you grew up, isn't it, Bobby?
Yeah, most of my life, I lived here. Well, I was born here, but moved away for about 6 years. But I've been here, would I say a long time. I've only moved away a few times, 2 or 3 years at a time throughout my years just for wrestling and business, But yeah, this is pretty much my home my entire life.
And I know you grew up watching probably this. I'm assuming we're about the same age. I'm guessing you probably grew up watching the same guys that I did. Let me tell you, here was my Saturday growing up in the let's say mid 70s to early 80s. I would get up, go out and play, and 11 o'clock, my eyes were glued to Memphis Wrestling with Lance Russell and Dave Brown and all those good folks. And then we'd go out and play a little bit more. And at 6 o'clock, I was glued to the Superstation, WTBS, watching guys like Dusty Rhodes and listening to Gordon Soley. And then for a while there, about 11 o'clock or so at night, you could catch a little show. I think it was out of Lexington called the ICW with Lanny Poffo, and well, actually, I think Macho Man Savage kind of started there. His dad was the Miser, and they started there. So I'm assuming that our Saturdays may be similar.
I would say you're 99% correct on that. I do some of these podcasts, and I appreciate you having me on. And some of the people from Kentucky that I've done them with or have been on with, they say the exact same thing, pretty much what you said. And that's what happened to me is, and they get a pop out of it too, especially a couple of guys out of Lexington and Louisville that are, again, around the same age we are. And I thought, well, you're gonna stop after the TBS or the 6:05 time there, but you went ahead and got that last little bit in on that ICW out of Lexington. Right. That would come on those late nights. But you did have I do know from talking to a couple of guys used to work there, one of them being Rip Rogers. They had a really good time slot at one time, right after Memphis, but it was only a short period of time, and then they went to that later, like 11:30 at night on a Saturday. So, but they did have a better time when they first started off. But yeah, I was 6 when we moved back down here from Baltimore. I lived in Baltimore. And I remember seeing some wrestling up there. It was the old WWWF back in the day. Right. And, you had some big names, the Sheik and the Bobo Bazils and the Sammartinos and things like that. But I was really too young. I just knew, the Baltimore Colts were on or the Baltimore Orioles were on or this boxing or wrestling because one of my aunts really loved her sports. Right. So I didn't really, I knew it was wrestling, but I knew it was pro wrestling. At least that's what it's called. And then I dropped out of it for about 4 years. I was about 10 years old, I guess, here in Ashland. And my brother came running out one Saturday morning. He said, "Bob, you gotta see this. Come here and see what's on the TV." We just had a little 19-inch black and white TV back then. And man, I ran up the steps and into the house and into what was the living room, and it was just the ending going off. And it was Bill Dundee on TV. One of my favorites. It was the old Memphis taping. Yeah. And that became his favorite wrestler at the time was Superstar Bill Dundee. And, of course, you can't watch replays, like you can nowadays. And no internet and this and that. Of course, one on black and white TV. But so the next week I watched, and, of course, there was Jerry Lawler and Dundee. And they did my brother kept saying, he done this move. And I just told Bill Dundee a story a couple years back. It's really funny. But I was like, "What is it?" He says, "You'll see it." And he's younger than me. He's 4 years younger. So he's trying to tell me this movie. And I'm telling him this is pro wrestling. I'm excited. But anyway, they get into the matches and some matches come on. But the move was the sunset flip. Yeah. And man, my brother said, "There it is." And he went nuts because he said, "That's what I was trying to tell you, the sunset flip." And I was hooked again. So it took that last 10 minutes of 1 week until watching it that following Saturday. And then I was hooked. And then, back on that, and then a few years later, here comes the Superstation at 6:05. Almost the same deal where, I was getting ready to go out to go out with a couple of my buddies, and my brother said, "You care if I turn this channel?" Completely different home, bigger TV. And I go, "No, go ahead." He gets up, and right before he turns the channel, though, here comes wrestling on a Superstation. Right. And we're like, what? Pro wrestling? And so I had a couple buddies that was, like I said, getting ready to pick me up. And they immediately called and said, "We're going to be late, man. Turn it on Channel 6. It was like TBS was the Channel 17, how to have the channels thing or whatever. Right. And they go, we'll be out there. One of them was at the other guy's house. He said, "We'll be out there as soon as this goes off." So my brother and I were sitting there watching it. And then my buddies were watching it. Well, there again, it goes off. And within a couple minutes, the very next one at 7:05 comes on. Right. Phone rings again. I stayed off my brother watching 2 hours of Georgia wrestling. and world championship or whatever, and they stayed there, and then finally, about 10 after 8 or 8:20 to come pick me up, and all we could talk about till 11 o'clock or 11:30 or curfew, whatever it was like professional wrestling. We couldn't believe we got 2 hours of it, and the guys we had heard about and hadn't been able to see.
Right.
Some of those guys, of course, had been through Memphis,
Mm-hmm.
and then again you had the ICW out of Lexington with the Macho Man and the Miser and Laney Poffo, Hustler Rip Rogers, and the Devil's Duo. All those guys, man, it was great. Great time to be a wrestling fan, which I think it is now too, if you choose your products. But there's a lot of good professional wrestling out there. I do not like the word sports entertainment. I used to, when I did my podcast, every time I said the E word, I spit. So,
well, that's. I mean, there's just people who watch wrestling today or wrestling fans today that aren't our age, or the older guys. We're not old; we're just older. I don't think they understand the difference, and there's a huge difference. And I guess part of that would be the kayfabe part of wrestling. I mean, we thought it was real. I mean, we thought it was absolutely real, and I think.
You mean it's not?
Well, you kind of that's kind of an open secret after Triple H and the guys hugged in the ring. But we were glued. I think they told a story. I mean, these guys tell a good story today, but it's not like the stories back then. And plus, you didn't have the internet like you do today to see some of this other stuff that was going on. Back then, man, you were glued at I think it was about 11 o'clock to Memphis wrestling, because something happened in the Mid-South Coliseum on Monday that I didn't get to go to Mid-South Coliseum, so I had to sit there and see what happened. Did Austin Idol get his head shaved, or did Joe LeDuc beat Haystack Calhoun? What happened? And so I think the stories were very well woven back then, a little bit better than they were today. Do you think so? Am I seeing something different?
No, I think you're 100% correct on that. That the stories were much better. Today's athletes are phenomenal. I wouldn't take anything away from the performances we see in a ring.
No doubt.
But the guys back then, they had honed their skills in different territories and got to work in so many different places with so many different people. So I think, when they came in, they started that program with someone, whether it be, the whole feud between Lawler and Dundee being from, both of them being baby faces to starting their feuds that they had through the years.
Right.
Or like you said, Joe LeDuc coming in and being that big killer heel. You wonder what happened. I think, and then when the invasion, when the Macho Man and the ICW invaded Memphis before they formed together there, when ICW went under, those type of things, I think that when it was good business. Obviously, it's a really good business now because it's on every TV channel, across the world. It seems like there's two, and you can watch it you can watch it 7 days a week if you want to.
Right.
But back then, like you said, you had to wait. You might get a magazine here, or someone, distant relative might talk to you and say, well, we're getting this up here, and they tell you about, the NWA down in Florida, or someone tells you about the WWF up in New York or Baltimore or something. But for the most part, we're talking our Memphis wrestling, and I think those stories, and them guys could pull it off where, maybe they done the same angle when they went out in Texas, 2 or 3 years before for another guy. And, hey, I've got this great idea here. I'm going to draw money, because that's what their goal was. They worked off the house. They had to draw money. So that means you put the butts in the seats.
Exactly
and,
right. Every 18 inches, there better be one every 18 inches to make sure they got paid, right? I mean,
yes, I think the performances were, again, never to take anything away, not to take anything away from today's athletes.
No,
just bigger, faster, stronger, etc. But those guys, I think, knew how to draw. Their names drew not just the entire product, you know.
Right, exactly.
What just and it's not a dig towards WWE or anything like that, or AEW or whatever. That's the name, but the people that perform for those companies, like in Memphis, in ICW, or Georgia, when we watched it, the names drew. It wasn't necessarily. We knew what it was, Memphis wrestling. We didn't have to necessarily know it's CWA or whatever it is, or AWA or whatever. We said, oh man, that's that show Lawler's on, you know.
Exactly right.
So,
And I think that's a huge difference that today. Jerry Lawler could go. He could work in Memphis, or he could go down to the NWA in Florida, as you said, or he could go up to the AWA with some of those guys up there with the Von Erichs. And he was Jerry Lawler. He wasn't Memphis wrestling. He was, today I think everybody's sort of, I may be wrong about this, but I think the WWE, and again, not knocking on the athletes, I just think the WWE is more concerned about their brand than they are the folks. They want to sell the WWE and not necessarily sell John Cena or whoever, might be the product. I think the brand has become the product and not the wrestlers. Is that fair to say?
Right. I think it's very fair to say it. Also, to take it even further, unless you follow the products on some of these big shows like that, sometimes they don't even start the show with the announcers, like this is, giving the announcer's name, or they don't even mention the referee's name, you know.
Right.
And for years they stopped mentioning, this guy was a former champion in another territory, or he was a former world champion. They just do their product. So I like to know who's announcing the shows, who I want to know who the referee is, to keep it more like a sport. I like the competitive of the sport. And, and some of these guys, and it's not a dig towards anyone personal, but some of the guys right there you see is like, I wanted to play in the NBA. Well, I was probably, 6 or 8 inches too short and, 2 steps too slow. And that doesn't mean that I could just go out there because I think it's fun to do. I'm going to step on the NBA court. Those guys are elite athletes. Same thing. I tell people this, they don't get trained properly. I'm like, what makes you think you can be a professional wrestler? I would never stop anyone trying to live their dream. But it's like, could you drive a car? Yeah. Well, guess what? If you like driving fast, you still cannot be a NASCAR driver,
right?
Because you can do those things. You got to get trained. You have to have been trained and grown up around this and love it. So a lot of those guys take years to get to those top spots in the WWE, and now you're seeing it over in AEW. Some of those guys have been around for years, again honing their skills and becoming some of the top performers in the world. But they've traveled to Mexico and Japan and Canada. And other countries too. Just those are just a few that I've mentioned there that I know some of the guys I went to. But again, when I see someone on there and they're getting that push, I want to know a little bit more about them. I want to know some storyline. Jungle Boy on AEW. His dad was Luke Perry. I'd like to know some background. How this character Jungle Boy. Right. How come he's Jungle Boy? Who's he wrestling? Why is he wrestling him? And I want to know who the announcer is. I want to know who the referee is. That way I feel like I'm watching a sport. So my belief can be suspended for that 2-hour period or whatever time I decide to watch it. Right now, I'm currently watching NWA every Tuesday at 6:05. I love the old studio feeling. And I'm following that. I'm a fan of Thunder Rosa, the young Mexican girl is doing so good. And there's several guys there. Of course, the Rock and Roll Express are still there, and they're getting ready to go for the Crockett Cup. So I still follow as a fan, but I like it that they keep it that I know who's refereeing. And again, I'm getting be a little redundant there, but I know why this match is taking place, what the storyline is.
Exactly.
Why is she defending her title against this person? Why? How in the heck is the Rock and Roll Express still out there, and it tells that story,
I agree totally.
So that's what I like. The professionalism of keeping it competitive and like a sport is what I like.
I agree totally. And going back to like Memphis wrestling, man, when Lance Russell and Dave Brown they told a story, as well as they were a very integral part of the storyline. And, you knew when you heard Lance Russell's voice, man, this guy is it. I mean, to me, he was it. And then Gordon Soley with
that's where I was going to go next.
Gordon Soley was just amazing. I mean, he used words nobody ever heard of. Solar plexus, I'll never forget that. A shot to the solar plexus. But and then even guys like Jim Ross. I think he got his start in Smoky Mountain, if I'm not mistaken. I know he was at Smoky Mountain for a while.
He was at Smoky Mountain for a while. But he had started off out there in Mid-South with out there in Oklahoma, Bill Watts' territory.
Oh, okay.
And then he went to Atlanta for a while. But then when he went to WWF back then, Yeah, he ended up working for Smoky Mountain for about a year and a half there. During that time, he was having some health issues,
Right.
and so he was working his way back up to get back on WWF TV.
And I think
But
Lance,
yeah, that
Lance Russell was there for a while too, wasn't he? Wasn't he at Smoky Mountain for a little while?
No, Bob Cottle was there.
Oh, okay.
Bob Cottle was
Bob
there.
Cottle, okay.
But we had, I was doing my podcast, which is no longer up. I do a lot of co-hosting and stuff, but I had the bell-to-bell Bobby Blaze.
Mm-hmm.
And we done these top 10 lists, and we had an 18-month deal set up for it. But we did top 10 announcers and managers and heels and regional heels and baby. But the announcers, of course, we picked Lance Russell, and then a lot of people on the YouTube channel, which the YouTube channel still has them up on Bell to Bell Bobby Blaze.
I've seen a couple of those. I have.
Yeah, the people, it was really close between Gordon Soley and Lance Russell, and we had to choose one, and we just said this is who we went with, for what we watched, you know.
Right.
And some of the people that were, a lot of the people that was on our a lot of our listeners were older guys and longtime fans and regional fans, and they got it. They was like, yeah, we agree. If you're from Florida or Georgia, you probably wanted Gordon Soley. You heard his voice.
Right.
But, most of us all heard the Memphis voice of Lance Russell.
Exactly.
And so it got over really, really good. And then we had Jim Ross in there, as you mentioned, Bob Cottle, JR, Tony Schiavone. We mentioned all these other people as well, but it was a really tough call for us to decide who we're going to put number one. We done that for our audience. We had a couple of guys that voted with us that decided, behind the scenes, this is the next list. Here's some guaranteed people.
Right.
So we went for Lance Russell, and them guys told the story too, because they presented it as an athletic performance.
Exactly.
This is athletic competition. This guy's really mad at this guy. There's some serious heat between these guys, folks, and things like that. And it brought it all together, tied it together nicely. I was just listening to someone the other day. It might have been Cornette, I'm not sure. But the older announcers back in the day, a lot of time for TV, or especially earlier days of TV, was, they was told to call it like you see it, call it like it's real. And that's pretty much all he was told.
Right.
They weren't even smartened up. They, call it as you see it. And, you might get a snicker here or there or something. Way back in the day, but for the most part, they kept it like, look, this is a competition, man.
Exactly.
That includes the announcers, that includes the referees. You don't put your hands on a ref in a baseball game or a football game or a basketball game. You shouldn't do it in a boxing match. You don't do it.
Right.
You shouldn't do it in a pro wrestling match. You might give them the office, getting your finger, getting up in the face, but you don't touch that referee unless it's going somewhere, know. So it meant something. There's rules. If you don't have rules, that's another thing. You break all the rules, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So I like them to see when they keep the shows as real as possible.
Exactly.
Because if I'm there, if I'm watching it, I'm there as a fan. I want to be my belief suspended for that 2-hour period or whatever I give them.
Right. I agree totally. And, you were talking about referees. If I'm not mistaken, the referee down in Memphis was Jerry Calhoun. And
great recall.
And he absolutely was the best. I mean, he sold everything. I mean, I used to love when, Lawler would just pull that, take his tights and take that top part and pull it down and start pounding somebody. Every time he'd hit somebody, Calhoun would jump, I mean, he sold it as much as anybody. And that was just, to me, that was amazing to watch those guys work. And then, was it Mark Curtis down at Smoky Mountain?
Yeah, I was going to say, I have to mention Mark Curtis, rest in peace. He was in Smoky Mountain, and he emulated Tommy Young, the great Tommy Young of the NWA days.
Yes.
But Mark Curtis would jump and sell the bumps, and he had that bow tie on, and he was professional, and he presented as real. He 5'6" and 140 pounds. He'd get right up your face. So look, when I tell you to quit choking, you quit choking. I'll send you to the locker room.
There you go.
And when someone took that bump, the facial, he sold right with the wrestlers. That's an important thing that he's right there on top of it.
Right, exactly.
And Mark Curtis, and I tell you right now, I'm just got to put this out there because a friend of mine too. I saw him a couple of years ago in Charleston. I went to see him. Charles Robinson in the WWE. was one of the best referees too. He hired in the same night I did in WCW way back in '97, I guess it was. But he was just a huge Nature Boy Ric Flair fan, and who isn't nowadays? But anyway, Charles Robinson, he's one of the hardest working guys in that crew up there, from refereeing to setting up the ring to helping with the agents and everything. You have to have important people like that, reliable people in your card like that, you know.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of want to give him a shout out too, because I always think of him as one of my favorite referees too. Not in the old school sense, but in the sense that he comes from the old school. He's our age as well, and he's still out there refereeing these matches and helping set up the ring and making sure it's set up, and then getting on a bus and traveling every day. You know, he does his job. You know,
it's
a tough gig out there on the road like that too. Let me tell you,
no doubt. And you had your fair share. Now, I know that you got started with the Malenkos, right? Weren't you trained? We were talking earlier about you can't drive a NASCAR without going through training. Well, you can't be a wrestler without being trained and trained well. And Boris and Dean Malenko, pretty daggone good teachers, I would think.
Oh, yeah, they're some of the best craftsmen in the business. The oldest son, Joe Malenko, trained directly under Carl Gotch, who was one of Malenko's good friends. And so Jody had a little bit to do with my training as well. But when initially, the great Malenko, Boris, he took me under his wing. And I went down. I was in Orlando. I went to Tampa, but I was in Orlando, and I had to go back and forth. I'd just go down on maybe a Friday evening, and I'd get up and train Saturday morning and a Sunday morning because they'd get a room or whatever, or stay with someone if I could, because there wasn't a room open. And I did that for about 3 or 4 months. And then after that, a room came open in Tampa, and I moved on down and moved where the camp was at, so I could go 4 days a week. And when I did that, I mean, I was only there about a week or so. And of course, my training was doing great. And that's when Dean stepped in, and because we was close to the same age. And he had been going to Japan quite a bit at that time. And he started helping with my training, really advancing my training, you know. And so between Boris and Dean, I got some of the best training in the world. That Malenko name carries such a long way in the world of professional wrestling. It's just I'd go several places, and if I just mentioned them, people, come here, lock up with me,
exactly,
something like I was wrestled. Funny story real quickly. I had a day off. I'd come in back in town. I was wrestling for Smoky Mountain at the time. And on our days off, if you got booked on your days off, that's great, because that's, more money for you and more experience and all that, as long as it didn't interfere with your regular booking sheet for that month. And so I got a phone call from a guy from Tennessee and said, "Hey, Bobby, we're in St. Albans, West Virginia, and we're short. How far are you?" And this is pre-cell phone. He called me from a payphone. I said, "I'm probably about an hour away." And he said, "Can you be there this evening? We're our county fair, and it's a guaranteed payoff." He said, "Just we got someone who couldn't show up." So I get there. Long story short, I'm going to be wrestling Wahoo McDaniel. And so didn't say anything to him. Didn't say anything to him other than I knew the finish. He's going to start the chops and start the dance and start the chops, and that's that. And so as soon as we lock up, he comes at me and walks me to the corner, and he goes, he says, "If you ever want to get booked, don't tell him Malenko trained you." And he goes and he says, "Move," and I move from this chop, and I go to the other corner, and he's just talking to me. And I go to the other corner, and he says, "Because everyone will think you're stiff." And he said, "Stay here," and he gave me a big chop to start the match. Well, of course, I got out. And another funny story similar to that was my first full-time gig with Smoky Mountain. I worked three nights in a row, but on the fourth night, there was a battle royal on top of it. And Kevin Sullivan was in it, and I kept seeing him work every night. Well, I knew who Kevin was from Florida. Probably spoke to him a time or two, and now I speak to him all the time. In fact, he's been over my house. He was at my house just a few years ago. It was really awesome. Someone had brought him over here to do a little seminar and talk to some of the guys and stuff. But anyway, I digress. I was up in Pike County, and we done a loop up there. And as soon as that Battle Royal bell ring, all I could think about Kevin Sullivan just would come over here and just chop the living heck out of me and beat me down like a dog, And as soon as it rang, Kevin comes running across that ring and grabs me and marches me right back to the corner. And he says, "Bobby, I heard Malenko trained you." And I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, put your hand on top of my head. Well, as soon as I put my hand up towards his head, he ran and jumped over the top rope and eliminated himself from the battle royal and then proceeded to flip me off and said, "I'll get you, Bobby Blaze. I'll get you." And I was so worried he was going to come over to chop him. And I've told Kevin that at least 3 times, probably kind of very redundant at times.
Right.
But he goes, "No," he goes, "I had respect for Larry, and I knew he was one of his students,
Right.
and or had been." And so it's just, and battle royal is one of those things, sometimes it's best to be the first one out, not to win it. Believe me.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, yeah, so this was a story like that where at Malenko name travels very well,
Right, exactly.
Bobby Fulton, I'll be doing a March 14th in Chillicothe, Ohio. There's a huge super show up there. It's at the fairgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
It's oh my goodness! I'll send it to you. I'll post it on Twitter.
Okay.
You would not believe what oh my gosh, I can't even think of all the people. Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express are going to be. Dennis and Bobby are going to be there.
Great.
The Horsemen, J.J. Dillon, Barry Windham, Tully, and Arn are going to be there. I mean, it's the big deal. Ricky Morton's going to be there. Bobby Fulton. They were full circle back. I was going to say Bobby Fulton. He called me up and said, "Bobby, I just got back from Australia." He goes, "I got a show. I think it's about 2 hours from your house. Can you be there?" And I never had met Bobby. I knew Tommy from down in Florida, Tommy Rogers, the other fantastic.
Right.
But and of course, I trained with Dean. Well, as soon as I get to the show, get there a couple hours early like you're supposed to, Bobby says, "Man," he goes, "come here. And you always do your shower in a bathroom, and do your business in a bathroom shower or a bathroom stall." It's really funny like that. Like, be a couple room full of guys in a bathroom. He goes, "Come here." And you go in there and like stand there. He goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Reason I called you," he goes, "Cornette gave me your number." He goes, "But I heard great things about you from Tommy and Dean. And they had all been in Japan a lot, And he goes, "Dean speaks real highly of you." And I was like, well, I worked with him, And so got me a job just like that. And Bobby took me every night I wasn't booked for Smoky Mountain. I started working for Bobby Fulton on those nights off, up in Ohio and West Virginia,
Right.
Where Smoky wasn't running the northern part. And I was up there underneath a mask or working as a heel at times because that wasn't on TV up there, So it's pretty cool, that name does carry a lot of weight, though, in the professional wrestling world.
No doubt about it. And let's talk a little bit about your time at Smoky Mountain. That was a Jim Cornette promotion, and I think that was kind of, he had left WCW, or had he left
Yes.
WWE at that time? He was between
WCW.
Okay, and he kind of was the booker there at Smoky Mountain, and they did a lot of shows in the Tennessee, Kentucky, and probably I know the Tennessee, Kentucky angle a lot. I was at one show. I was gosh, I don't remember. I was probably 20 years old. This is probably 90. No, that would have been 25. About 93, 94, somewhere along in there. And now this, you're going to think I'm crazy here. I'm blowing you full of smoke or something. But I saw you, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you were wrestling Jerry Lawler. Did you wrestle Jerry Lawler?
Yes, I did. I had a battle with him. That's right. I started. Smoky Mountain was a brainchild of Cornette.
Right.
He started in '92. I started contacting him in '92. I was still in Florida at the time. And to make a long story short, it took about a 9-month period for me to get hired with them. And I met him in early '93 for a tryout match.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I started working for him pretty much, 3 or 4 times a week when, 16 bookings a month sometimes. It depends. We never had less than 12 bookings, but a lot of time we had like 16 or 20 bookings. And I started off just done some TVs and this and that for him, and done some house shows for him, and got along with him fine. And then he goes, "Hey, I got this great idea for you." They started this World Junior Heavyweight title run with me and Chris Candido.
Right.
And I got to travel around with that for a while. And then, of course, the Beat the Champ TV title, they put that on me. And they just kept building up till early '95. I found out in late '94, but around December or so. But the title didn't change until February. Holy cow, I think we just missed the anniversary. I think it was February 26th, 1995. I think it's February.
Yeah, that was.
I have to get online and check it out.
No,
but I wrestled Jerry the King Lawler.
You're exactly right. That was Sunday, Bloody Sunday too, right?
Yes. And that just hit because usually someone tags me in something. And if you're following me out there, I'm only on Twitter. I don't have any Facebook, no Instagram. I'm on Twitter at Bobby Blaze 744. But yeah, someone tags me usually. But yeah, February 26th down in Knoxville, Jerry the King Lawler and myself, and that's really a trip within itself because you think back to where our story starts. I'm just a little kid down 27th Street, about 10 years old, living by McDonald's. My brother comes running out and said, "Bob, you got to check this. What's on TV?" And then, like I said, didn't see him that first week, but then the next week, watched the whole program. There's Jerry the King Lawler, and I grew up a Memphis fan. When I was in college, I went to. They come to Ashland one time, the Memphis did, way back in like 1979 or 78. But when I was in college, at Lee's College, I went several times from there to Lexington on a Thursday night. The old Memphis territory, I think they ran a third Thursday of every month at Rupp Arena. Of course, they shut off half of it. You know, they're not the UK Wildcats,
Right,
you know.
right.
But I watched Jerry Lawler fight back then, you know. And anyway, a few months before, like I said, several weeks before that, Cornette called me and said, "Hey, I've got this idea for you. And what do you think?" And he goes, "I'll get back with you on Monday because I have to run it by Jerry." And I was like, "Hey," he said, "All I ask you is don't tell anyone." Well, I didn't tell anyone, of course. And then Monday, Cornette called me back. And I was out of town. He was out of town again. We're just, you know, free cell phone. Some people may have had them, but basically calling from home to home and knowing we're going to travel next tour. He called me on a Friday, and we was both traveling until that Monday and in a different territory at the time. He was in Smoky, but I was off his TV, but still in touch. And he said, "I got this great idea for you." And so they started running the angles. And yeah, so at the end of it, Buddy Landell was involved, the Dirty White Boy was involved, and Jerry the King Lawler, and he had the Smoky Mountain heavyweight title. And I had made my comeback debut earlier in the card. And the way it was set up was Bullet Bob Armstrong, who's the commissioner. He said, "I'm going to go in the back and find because Landell put White Boy out. So he thought I now have a title shot against Lawler." Well, the commissioner said, "Here's what I think is important, that you have rules in place." You know, the commissioner said, "Hey, you were supposed to win a match, and it's the winner who wins the match gets a title shot, Lawler. You just don't automatically step into that role. You have to have a match. So I'm going to go back and grab the first wrestler I see. If you can beat him or the winner of that match, we'll get a title shot tonight." So, of course, the place goes crazy and stuff because they're going to see a title shot one way or the other. Right. But, of course, when the spotlight hits, when Bullet Bob Armstrong's walking me back down the aisle, I'd been off the TV for like 3 or 4 months at the time. Hadn't wrestled Knoxville for probably 5 or 6 months at that time. So, of course, it was a good response and kind of the response that we wanted, you know, like, shit. Right. He's going to fight Lawler. Lawler's going to win. Then Landell will get his title shot because Landell had been pushing on TV each week, and I wasn't even there. Right. And sure enough, I go to the ring with Jerry the King Lawler, and boom, it about a bing, boom, boom, and Landell jumps up on the apron thinks he's going to try to help me, I guess, and I bump Lawler into him. Lawler goes down, and I pin Lawler 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
and you know, that was a huge pop. And totally blew everyone away because they didn't expect it. Well, then I'm already beat up a little bit from Lawler, and Landell grabs the house mic and he says, "Well, I guess it's you and me, Bobby." So he jumps up and just starts whopping me because I'm just now finishing Lawler. And, of course, he thinks, it's going to be an easy night off, which it appears to be. But here comes Dirty White Boy from the back, and almost similar, he tries to reach into the ring, and when he does, Buddy turns his back, and I roll Buddy up 1, 2, 3. And you're still Smoky Mountain heavyweight champion. So it was a really good deal, man. It was really, I just call it good booking, smart booking.
Right.
And
right.
I'm a Cornette guy. So, I'm a Cornette guy. I had to say that.
Me too.
I like Jimmy, man.
Always like Jim. I've been trying to find a way to reach out to him to see. I know he does so much stuff. He'd probably never do this one, but I'd love to talk to him for a few minutes. But let's talk a little bit about your books. Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots, Will Travel. What's that one all about?
Just about pretty much everything we've talked about. It talks about for me becoming a wrestling fan at an early age. It's pretty much just a memoir about everything. I've all the places I've been to: Canada, South Africa. There's stories from all those countries. Japan, Australia. see, there's just stories about, training at Malenko's, the exercises I've done. I have a whole Smoky Mountain title run in there from the time I had a junior heavyweight title to the story I just told you just now about the lead up to the King Lawler battle.
Right.
It's got now I'll tell you this, I have a hard time. A lot of times I just write like I talk, and I use explicit language a lot. I'm trying not to today.
I understand.
But I don't put it in there for shock value. For an example, I'm gonna drop an F-bomb. But if you're in a locker room and Cornette says, this is what you're going to do, that's the way he said it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I put it in there not for shock value, but I put it in there. This is the way someone in a male dominant sport locker room, 4 or 5 guys in a car or 7 or 8 guys in a locker room, and you're just talking and BSing around.
Right, exactly.
Sometimes that language I didn't put anything in there to say, oh, he's just shocking you by using that word. No, I put it in there because that's usually the way someone said something or quoted something.
Well, I'll say this, Bobby. Just anybody that doesn't believe that, just go to YouTube and just go to Jim Cornette's podcast. It will not be on 5 minutes, and you'll hear 35 F-bombs. So he's telling the truth. That's exactly how Cornette talks, and that's just that's the way it is. And if you don't like it, that's okay. But
that's the way I talk 99% of the time too. So you got me on a good day. I'm trying to be very respectful, but that's just where I talk. So anyway, back to the book, Pin Me, Pay Me. I thought, well, have boots will travel, and I thought that was a play on have gun will travel.
Exactly.
So I thought, okay.
Exactly.
You're going from town to town. I'm not a gunslinger or anything like that, or a shooter or anything. It's just like, but pin me, pay me. Give me my check, and I'll go to the next town. I'm here to do business. And
exactly.
If I win, I win. If you win, you win. If it's a draw, the main thing is pin me. Pay me, I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna put my boots. Next day they'll be in a different town anyway,
Right, and so will you.
And that's what it's about. Yeah, so exactly. Hopefully, I've been in Orlando before, and your boots are in Atlanta, but things happen. But it's just about traveling with WCW. It speaks briefly about the time I did work in WWF, doing some TV jobs for them back in the early '90s. Mm-hmm. The experience that was, I talk about a little bit about everything in that book, and it's done really well. I woke up this morning, wasn't really. Of course, I wanted to do this podcast. I love doing podcasts. It wasn't on my mind, but I was doing some book. I just released a little short story on my Amazon page, and so that's what was on my mind. And I looked, and I was like, you know what? That's not too bad. I've got over 105 reviews.
Yeah.
On Pin Me, Pay Me. That's over 100 reviews, and I thought that's pretty daggone good, man.
It is
to have that book, and I've only gotten a couple of bad reviews, and I'll take any review. I'll tell you, as an independent author, I'll take any review. But here's what happens is I've had a review. I've only had one review taken down. I don't interact with people that leave reviews and this and that, but I got a 1-star review once. And it said Bobby sucks. Well, you know what? That might be true, but that's not anyone's business. but I wrote Amazon and said, look, this is not a book review.
Right.
And they took it down, of course, because it wasn't. It was just some kind of personal thing for me.
Yeah.
But I got one of the best reviews with a 3-star review, and I'll tell you why. I read this review. It's been about 3 years ago, I guess, and I said 3 stars. And I read this review, and I said, when I read that review, if this wasn't my book, I'd buy the damn thing.
Right.
It was written that well.
Right.
Well, I said, I've got to see who this person is. And we'll say his name's Tim. I don't know what his name was.
Okay.
I go and he's reviewed 4 other products that he's gotten on Amazon. One of them was Bret Hart's book. One of them was like a toothbrush or something. One was like a Black & Decker hand blender. And he had given every one of those things a 3-star review. But when he wrote it so eloquently, I thought, my goodness, first of all, he must be hard to give a 5-star to.
Right.
I mean, it was a Black & Decker Bullet, one of those Bullet blenders,
Yeah, I know what you're talking
and
about.
I was like, that's 5-star, but he gave it 3. But the review he wrote for, I said, damn, I want to run out and buy me a blender, So it doesn't necessarily mean because I'm averaging about a 4.5 stars out of 105 reviews. That's pretty daggone good.
Yes, it is.
But and I appreciate that. But also those 3-star reviews are just as important as those 5 stars.
Absolutely.
Because all I ask for people, they leave me again. Not a personal attack or anything. That's whatever people's going to say, whatever they want to say. But I appreciate this, and I put this out there on Twitter a lot. Is thanks for your honest review,
right,
and your fair review. You know, I appreciate any fair, honest, and fair reviews. You know, when I do see someone, I don't go on Amazon. I haven't responded to anyone on Amazon as far as those reviews. But if I know, like, they've got a hold of me on Twitter or something, I thank them and tell them.
Right.
They say, I left you a 3-star or 5-star. I tell them, I appreciate you being fair and honest. That's all I'm asking, you know. I'm just thankful for a review, because that keeps moving people, you know, through to find your book again, hopefully.
Right, exactly.
You know.
Well, plus, you know, as a sportscaster, I was reviewed a lot by people who listened, and I would listen to all of them. And if they had honest and insightful critique of me, I would look at that and say, okay, maybe I need to do that better. As an author,
right.
If you've got honest reviews as an author, you look, and maybe when you write your next book, you're thinking, okay, you know, this was an honest review from this person, and they had a valid point. So maybe you alter a little bit on your next book as to, you know, you're not going to alter the content, but maybe the style or something like that, you may alter, because that review was honest and was a good critique of you.
Yes, that's correct. And I'm trying to work on one right now. And it's just like, you know, you're not going to get rich off of unless you become #1 bestseller, you know,
right,
your Stephen
exactly.
King's, your James Pattersons, and whoever else, you know. But honestly, you know, I sell a few books, and I'm happy to sell a few books. And you can get those on Amazon. And if you see me in the Ashland area, or if you hit me up on Twitter, I'll meet you and sign one to you in person. I am going to be in Chillicothe, like I said, March the 14th at the county fairgrounds up there. So it's a fan fest. That's why I tried to spit out earlier.
Fan fest.
From 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. It's a fan fest. After that, they're going to have a seminar, and then later that evening they've got like 15 matches scheduled. So it's an all-day event that they're putting on up there at the fairground in Chillicothe, Ohio.
And mostly legends, right? Most of those will be legends of wrestling?
Yes.
Cool.
Mostly legends, and have the young guys coming in and wrestling later that evening. Of course, they'll be there that day. The Masked Superstar is going to be there. Barbarian's going to be there. Ming's going to be there. Raven's going to be there.
Wow.
I'm just trying to think of guys. Shane Douglas will be there. Trying to think of some of the other guys, just, you know, coming off the top of my head that I know for sure is going to be there. But I know Bill Dundee's schedule will be there. But anyway, you know, if I sell my book, that's great. And I love meeting the fans and stuff like that. So, but no, back to the point of, I'm not selling 1 million books. So that tells me my next book better be better. You know, I got to write a better book. Mm-hmm. So that's one of those critiques is, like I said, is if someone says, you know, I really like this, but I think if you develop, you know, give us some more background story on, say I didn't fill in enough background about with the Smoky Mountain title. Well, maybe that's something I need to go back and work on, you know.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah, I agree with you 100%. Just try to write it better next time, you know. And that comes with I guess, through reading, through communication, and obviously keep writing.
Exactly,
you know?
right.
So,
well, Bobby, we have been on for a while now, about 45 minutes, and it's flown by. And I want to do this again sometime. If you're willing to do that, maybe down the road, maybe this fall or so. I definitely want to talk to you after this fan fest and see how that went, and we'll promote that for you. For sure, I'm going to promote your book for you, folks. If you're an old school wrestling fan, guys like Bobby Blaze are a treasure. And Bobby, I have had an absolute blast sitting and talking with you today. And I want to tell you my favorite wrestler, and this will be the last question. You probably can't pick a favorite wrestler. My favorite wrestler of all time was Mr. Wrestling #2, and I don't know why, but I love that. I love that bionic knee, and I saw him wrestle in Huntington, West Virginia, at the old Memorial Coliseum, and he was actually on the undercard. The main show that night was actually Buzz Sawyer and Tommy Wildfire Rich in a cage match, and I never saw so much blood in my life that everybody was still alive. But I don't know what it was about Mr. Wrestling 2, but I didn't even know of Mr. Wrestling 1. I guess they were a tag team back before I started watching, but just loved his style. I loved his interview. He never got overly excited. He was just always calm and just really liked him. Is there a wrestler that kind of stands out in your mind? Not necessarily your favorite, but just one that really, when you were younger and watching, that said, hey, this is what I want to do and this is why I want to do it.
Yeah. Well, my all-time favorite, none other than Terry Funk. That's my favorite.
Man, there you go.
Just one of those things where Terry Funk was always just my favorite wrestler. I've had the pleasure of meeting Terry Funk in Knoxville and talking to him, and I tell you, just to learn so much, and he had so much respect for my trainer Malenko during his promo stuff. He said he took a lot of his promotional work from watching Boris Malenko when he was younger,
Right.
But I tell you what, man, I was probably there at that same night that they had the cage match up there at the old field house up there, But a lot of good memories there. But yeah, my favorite all time would be, when I break down different things when I do top fives and top tens and this and that, but my mind, probably my all-time favorite, none other than the Texas Bronco, Terry Funk.
There you go, man. He did some great stuff and helped out a lot of folks. He put a lot of guys over. Terry Funk did, no question about it. He seemed to me like, I followed some of his career. He always seemed like a guy that didn't care who won or how it went, as long as there was a good pop and the fans went away happy. That was all he cared about, it seemed like to me. Anyway. Yeah. Well, Bobby, man, like I say, this has just been an absolute pleasure for me, and I thank you so much for your time. And we're going to, on the website, we'll put up your book, and I'll try to find out some information on the Fan Fest in Chillicothe, and we'll get some things going and let everybody know what's going on with you. So I appreciate your time. Appreciate your time,
yes, my friend. Sir. You got it. Thank you.
It's produced locally, and it's top quality. Many of you are putting those two items at the top of your list of priorities when you're making decisions about purchases these days. Should be the same with beef jerky. That's why we partner with Mingy Beef Jerky. It's better because it's hand-cut from a quality piece of solid beef, never chopped or formed like you get from other companies. Go to MingyBeefJerky.com to see the story of this locally owned and operated company from my hometown in Paris, Kentucky. It's the best. Trust me on that one.
Well, I really want to thank Bobby Blaze for his time today. It was just a wonderful, wonderful, great time reminiscing, talking wrestling with an old school wrestler. Really enjoyed it. And a couple of things he was talking about. The World Classic Professional Big Time Wrestling Fan Fest is going to be Saturday, March 14th. At the Fairgrounds Heritage Center in Circleville, Ohio. And, man, they have got a fantastic lineup. Barry Windham, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, James J. Dillon, Baby Doll, Bobby Fulton, The Midnight Express with Jim Cornette, Ricky Morton, Missy Hyatt, Tommy Wildfire Rich, Jimmy Valiant, Road Warrior Animal, The Godfather, Nikita Koloff's going to be there, Kevin Sullivan, and just a whole host of wrestlers are going to be there. And you don't want to miss that one. You can get tickets by going to brownpapertickets.com. That's brownpapertickets.com. March 14th. Good show for those of you in the Circleville, Ohio area. Going to be lots of fun things going on there, and you can check out brownpapertickets.com. They've got different levels of tickets with some meet and greets and some VIP stuff, so check that out. Also, Amazon.com, Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots Will Travel, Bobby Blaze Smedley. You want to pick that one up, it's going to be a dandy. What is a dandy? I'll tell you, I'm all not finished it yet, but what I've read has been super interesting, and so you might want to give that one, if you're an old school wrestling fan like I am, give that one a look. Amazon.com, Bobby Blaze Smedley, Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots Will Travel. I want to thank you so much for joining us this week, and we hope that you have enjoyed your time here. Hey, we've also started a YouTube channel, not just our podcast channel, but also a YouTube channel. It's just the audio. Nobody wants to see a picture of me or cameras on me while I'm talking to these guys. That's for sure. But the audio available on YouTube now. So, we're on Apple, iTunes. We're on Google Play. We're on Podbean. Most podcasting apps you can find us on. And the podcast on your iPhone will find you there. The podcast app on your other smartphones will get you there. But if you want to just listen on YouTube, some people do that. And so we are now uploading our stuff to YouTube as well. Give us a subscribe and a like there if you want to. If not, no big deal. Give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you think. We want you to be honest. We're just trying to have a little fun with this little deal, and certainly am having fun with it at this point. I want to thank Bobby Blaze Smedley once again for joining us this week, for Curtis Mackley and the fine folks at Mingy Beef Jerky. Boy, I couldn't do it without them. Travis Rice, Frankie, Robin, the great folks at Grayson Sanitation, thank you all as well. For Jenna Birmingham, I'm Tim Carper saying so long, everyone. God bless and have a great week from all of us here at The Box, powered by Mingy Beef Jerky.
You've been listening to The Box, powered by Mingy Beef Jerky. We hope you enjoyed the show and invite you to come back next week. For The Box, I'm Jenna Birmingham.